Capture. Capture, okay. And this is like backwards, like it is on an old camera.
Oh, there you go.
Are we all in? Yes.
All in. Oh, that's wonderful.
Here we are. Right. You see how it's backwards. So, hello. I am here in Easton, Pennsylvania on Comedy Rocket Radio, talking with Tim and Earl, famous Easton couple here. Say hello, guys.
Hello out there, Global Village.
Yes, this beautiful room upstairs here with two new kittens. And why don't you begin telling me a little bit about your accordion history?
Oh, we go right into the accordion history.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I have about a dozen accordions, I guess. And I started playing about 1959. I guess it was, what, 12, 13, something like that. Okay. And I'm from Buffalo. So in order to survive in Buffalo, the Polish section of Buffalo, you had to learn how to play the accordion.
Really?
So put accordion in my hand, and my accordion teacher used to show up in its Etzel. Shows again how old I am. He'd pull up in
what color?
It was a blue and white Etzel. And back in those days, people dressed up. He had a tie and his jacket, and he'd haul his accordion up to the attic where I did my practicing with him. Of course, I was never ready. I didn't want to do scales. That was boring. So I would torture the poor teacher, my goodness. And but he would play along with me, and then we'd do that, and so forth. But it was hot in the attic, and I've shared the story around on occasion. But it was hot in the attic, and so there I would be in my little shorts as a little kid. The bellows would pinch my little legs, and I had buck teeth like this, you know. And so my nose would run over my buck teeth and onto the accordion. And of course, the accordion was up to here. So I mean, I was a mess as a little kid, practicing the accordion. My parents didn't push me, I'll have to say that, but I kept going at it. I didn't want to do the scales and so forth. But eventually I picked up polkas, and so I gathered together with all the old Polish guys in the neighborhood. And they'd say, "Early," that was my nickname, still is actually, "Early, play us a polka." So I'd sit down and I'd whip out a polka or two. And that's how it all started. And then guitars came along, you know, in the 60s. So guitars came along, accordions were kind of a little laughed off because of Warren Swell. And so I put the accordion aside and eventually got rid of the accordion. And then about 20 years ago, I went to Sailorsburg and saw an accordion for sale, picked it up, played it. People threw money in the thing, and I took that money and I bought the accordion.
Wow.
Now I have about 12 accordions.
12 of them.
So I guess I've come back in style. I'm glad I hung on to my leisure suit. You know,
right,
know.
exactly.
Things can come back in style.
Yeah, you have to be wearing the proper
That's
tie.
proper. You have to have a pinky ring. I don't have a pinky ring. To play accordion, you're supposed to have a pinky ring.
Okay.
But I've been playing, and so as far as Easton goes, one day during the middle of the week, I just thought, I'm going to grab an accordion and go downtown. I sat in a circle by myself and played. A few people gathered around. And then eventually I showed up at the market, played around the edges, and I was invited to be part of the market. And so now I'm out there playing the accordion every chance I get. And I find a lot of people are coming out of the woodwork who have accordions in their closets for ages. Their parents, their mother, father played the accordion. And so some of the accordions I've got are a result of the market. And people would show up, open their trunk, oh, here's an accordion my father had.
Right.
And so that's how I've acquired some of these accordions. It's a lot of fun. And I remember the last one I got, late 1930s accordion I bought from a fellow. And when I played it, you could see some tears in his eyes because his father had played it when he was young. His father is no longer with us. And then he took his cell phone and put his mother on the other end, who's in a nursing home, not much more time to go, and I played, and she was crying at the other end. So
oh my God.
There's all these kind of stories I can share.
Touching,
And I notice young people, especially little children, they're wide-eyed. Where do you plug this thing in? What is that? It's an accordion. The parents would say,
where's the rest of the piano?
That's an accordion. So excuse my enthusiasm
about
the accordions.
It's
kind of fun to.
Such an interesting.
It's fun to come back in style again at my age.
Absolutely.
So I have a lot of fun doing. I love the response of the people, and I play for the market. I collect tips for the market, give all the money to the market.
That's fantastic.
I love these.
That's fantastic. It's great.
And I've gotten a few gigs around the edges. So that's how I got into playing the accordion.
That's great. How, where does the accordion come from? Do you know what?
Actually, the history goes way back to China, of all places.
Really?
Very simple little China. But it really was developed in the mid-1800s in Germany, in particular. It started out as little button boxes, which is called a diatonic accordion. And I have one of those. And you can see concertinas and so forth, little buttons. They're really a modified harmonica. And there's a difference because harmonica, you blow in the one little opening, you have a tone, and you suck in and you have a different tone.
Okay.
And those little button boxes are the same. They're very little complicated. What I have is a piano accordion. That came much later, late 1800s, early 1900s, whereas a piano keyboard and then buttons for the basses on the other side.
I see.
And if you hold a G, no matter which way you squeeze it, it's G.
Okay.
Whereas in the button boxes, you hold a G, it's one tone, and then the next is another tone. Well,
interesting. Yeah, no, there's so, I have, how heavy is it?
It's about 25 pounds.
And is it, does it take time to kind of break in a...
It was tricky as a child to learn it because you're squeezing in and out, you're playing the notes, you got to remember the bass. It's sort of like typewriting. If you know how to type, work on a typewriter, it takes a while to get them, but after a while you
then it's just very natural.
And so when I play, I don't even think about it, it just kind of comes. And usually I can play, if somebody mentions a song, I can dive right in and play it. Although I have a lot of sheet music. And this accordion I bought, the guy gave me all his father's sheet music. Some of which I had lost over the years that I never mastered when I was a kid.
Oh, wow.
So now we're learning some of these show pieces.
More, okay,
so it's just a challenge. It's a lot of fun, and in the past I've had bands. When I was younger, I had some bands that I formed that we played various places.
With what other instruments?
Saxophone, euphonium, drums, and guitar.
Okay.
And that kind of thing.
That sounds like good.
Little polka bands. My first band was called the Teen Tones. That shows how old I am. The Teen Tones. And then at the hospital where I worked, I formed some bands. We were called Alert and Oriented.
Okay.
And a few other hospital terms that I formed other bands. And it's just crazy, crazy stuff. But it's fun.
Yeah.
And it is picking up.
Yeah. Do you ever give any lessons or instruction?
I've asked constantly to give lessons, but I'd rather just play.
Right.
To give lessons.
It's going to bring it into another
whole realm, and I'm not sure I want to sit down and give lessons and put children through what I
take away the joy.
Take away the joy of playing the accordion. It's just fun to play it. So, so I do that occasionally. So that's, now that I'm retired, I'm really getting into it.
Right.
It's fun.
Right. So. And do you ever get tired of hearing?
Well, when the cats go running, I usually also leave the room. But I do love the sound. It's a very cheerful sound. When I first met Earl 37 years ago, he wasn't playing the accordion for the next maybe, 25 years or something. So I didn't know that he had this talent.
Right.
But piano, yes, but accordion, never heard. I don't know that I've ever heard an accordion outside of the Lawrence Welk show.
Right.
And one day he got this accordion and started playing. I love the sound.
Yeah.
It's very cheerful. It's very, it's really upbeat kind of sound.
It really is.
And
you can't help.
And he seems so natural. He goes into another place when he's playing the accordion. He's just so happy and like a childlike kind of joy that it takes over. And I noticed that right away, and I thought, I love the accordion. I missed out on the stigma of the accordion, which went through a stigma phase. We all do.
Right.
When we're ahead of our time or something.
Yeah.
And we, so I missed out on a lot of that because I was living overseas some of those years, and in this country, guitars and electric guitars really took off, and accordions were pretty much a joke, I guess, from what you're telling me. And I was a child in Harrisburg, so that wasn't the accordion capital of the world. It was too maybe waspy, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know much about an accordion except for Lawrence Welk, which I enjoyed, but it was great hearing it, and I'm so glad he's rediscovered this talent. It's a natural talent, I think.
Yeah.
It's an art form.
A friend of mine plays, my friend Bob in New York, and he's done cruise ships and all these different little trade shows, and people are constantly amazed.
You could be a one-person orchestra.
Absolutely.
You don't need accompaniment. You could do it all yourself.
Absolutely.
And carry it around 25 pounds, but you can carry it around.
And it doesn't plug in, so it's portable.
Although I do have one that has microphones in it.
Oh, really?
And it can be plugged into an amplifier.
Oh, that's
which might be a little redundant to amplify an accordion.
Right.
But I would blow you away out of this house if I played it with that amplifier. So, but.
And it doesn't have any history like the bagpipes or or step dancing where something was, I just learned all about the bagpipes and how one part of it was the same type of thing where it was illegal to play music. And that's why one part of the bagpipes has a certain technology that was meant to keep it hidden from the police.
Now, some people might...
How dare you have fun?
Some people might
Too
think
much fun.
that the accordion should be illegal. But
Yes, many people
and actually be
probably would.
arrested.
Yes,
But
Send her
absolutely.
to jail.
Yeah,
For playing the
I
accordion.
can see it coming.
If they have sensitive eardrums, you know.
Yeah,
It
right.
can be loud. But, well, the bagpipes are Scottish, so
Yeah,
was it because the Scots were so stern?
it was a
and
very
they didn't-
similar,
And it was very ceremonial, it wasn't like funerals.
right.
Mhm.
It was a
certain
very
ceremonies.
similar reason as the step dancing. This would
Yeah.
lead to sin.
Oh,
This would
sin.
lead to the world falling apart.
Oh my
I don't think
goodness.
the accordion has that history.
Well, although Richard Wagner, your favorite composer, when he first saw the accordion, and it was invented in his lifetime in Germany, the big one, big
Right.
accordion, he said, it's the end of the world. For music, he meant.
I think that's true. It sounds...
Well, it was in the
sounds like
film.
something that's in-
Here's
what's in
this
the movie
thing now
about Wagner.
is just going to make,
But the accordion is a reed instrument. I guess a bagpipe is.
Yes.
You have the wind that you
The wind.
blow
Yeah.
through reeds.
yeah,
And
and
they vibrate.
the gentleman who was giving this whole presentation, he's actually a third generation piper.
Mm.
I went and called him a bagpiper, and he was like, "Bagpiper McGurk, who are you?" He was in
With a name like McGurk.
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, was
so-
McGurk Scottish, or is
McGurk
that?
is Irish. So
Irish, I
he
thought
was, that
Irish.
was two counts against me, calling him a
Oh, I see.
bagpiper. And
Yes,
right,
yeah.
who's this McGurk girl?
Well, my ancestry is Scottish.
Is it?
Yeah,
Mhm.
my late twin sister traced it back. Patrick Henry was one of my ancestors.
Oh, really?
The guy who said, "Give me liberty, give me death."
Oh.
I'd rather have one before the other, or both.
Yes.
I mean, eventually.
Yeah.
But every time I hear a piper
Mhm.
of the Scottish,
Mhm.
I don't know. It seems
It was amazing.
ancient, like a wonderful.
Yes, and the
sound.
reed that he took he did an hour presentation of music, and then he sat down and he disassembled the bagpipes and told the story of each part. And all these young kids were sitting, and they'd come in and they'd sit and they'd listen. He was so engaging, and then they'd go run off again. They'd sit and listen again.
Yeah.
And he's telling this story, story after story of all this. And the reed that he had was actually his grandfather's.
Mm.
So
The
it
actual
was,
reed.
yes,
Wow.
it was about 180 something years
Oh
old.
my gosh.
Yeah, and so the gasps in the audience.
And do they only have one reed in that whole instrument?
believe so.
Whereas yours has a reed per
Oh, yeah.
key. Right?
Every
Or-
key must have,
must have
right.
its own
Double
reed.
reeds usually.
Yeah.
Each
Yeah.
key, yeah.
Mhm.
In and out and that kind of thing.
It's fascinating, right?
It
yeah.
is.
Human mind, invention, our
Amazing.
need for music, our need for
Yeah.
expression, and then this comes along.
And without electricity, which didn't yet
Right.
exist. So.
Yes, and a house to put it all in, right? A
Yes.
place to be in. So give me
Yes.
a little bit of your background history as an architect.
Well, I knew as a smallest child I had to be an architect.
Mhm.
My single mother, she was newly single, and she had 3 infants, myself, my late twin sister, and my brother, a year older. And so the 3 of us, she was working full time, newly divorced, and I was 2 years old, and my brother was, I think, 2.5 or 3. We were about a year apart, all 3 of us, right? So there's my mother, newly single, having divorced our father, and she got a full-time job in the state capitol building in Harrisburg. I grew up in Harrisburg.
Okay.
And she worked for a senator who let her bring her 3 infants
Wow.
until we got to kindergarten or first grade, I guess. And so that was our playpen, was the state capitol building in Harrisburg.
Wow.
And we'd run rampant through that whole building. If you've ever seen it, it's the most beautiful capitol building in the United States. It's modeled after St. Peter's in Rome,
Okay.
and it is so magnificent. It's just been, not just, within the last 10 years, it's finally been restored. It took 25 years to restore it. And Matt Ryan, who was the longest running Speaker of the House, spearheaded that effort to restore that building. It took him 25 years.
Oh
It's
my
so
God.
magnificent. Evergreen Studios in New York did all of the finishes, and everything was just magnificent.
Mhm.
Well, that was my playpen. And we'd run riot and rampant, even up into the dome, which is 27 stories high. And my brother, sister, and I would lean over the railing. No one would stop us, not just because she was Senator George Wade's secretary, but because back then people didn't
let kids be
care.
kids.
The kids could
yes,
play.
let them.
So we went up into the dome and would have contests like leaning over, spitting, see whose spit would hit the
Right.
who it would hit.
Spit races.
And then we'd run riot through there. And the floors are the Moravian tiles from the Mercer tiles of all these animals and plants and everything Pennsylvania that Henry Mercer did out of Doylestown, and it was built around 1904. And so it was all this magnificent space, grand staircase modeled after the Paris Opera House.
Wow.
And it was just so beautiful. And I didn't know what the word architecture was or architect, but I just knew, I was so overwhelmed by the beauty of this space for years, my earliest years, from I'd say age 2 to 6 maybe. This was it every day.
Incredible.
And then I guess I must have asked someone once I could speak, what is this called, or who, why, and learned, an architect designed this. And so that's what I want to be, an architect. So that was my lifelong
that's amazing. That's a
goal.
Put right in the middle of the most
it was like this
amazing structure. Let's start you off small, right?
And art too, because it's called the Palace of Art. And there's great DVD out on PBS, I guess, Palace of Art of the Capitol building, the restoration of it and everything. And the most magnificent artworks. So I think that's also how I then became a fine artist. But I also got interested in historic architecture in my career. So I went to Penn State and studied architecture for 5 years. It's a 5-year program, and it's very competitive. 9 out of 10 don't even make it to the 5th year.
Really?
And of those who do, 9 out of 10 don't make it years later to get licensed. And of those, 9 out of 10 don't make it past age 40 or 50.
Yeah.
So because of the competition and the realities of the profession, it's very demanding, and you have to be really obsessed with it, or you just don't
It's not
succeed.
something that, it requires.
And then it's tied into the economy, so every time
You're
the
not
economy
building,
gets sneezes, architects die and get pneumonia, unless you're willing to travel the world and go somewhere in the world it's busy. So it was like this magic carpet ride that took me all over the world. I worked in Wales and London and Australia, just everywhere, the Northeast USA, Manhattan for many years. And here in the Lehigh Valley, I worked in Bethlehem for 3 years, in New Jersey for a couple of years. And so long as I was willing to put my profession first, then that's what I would do. But then once Earl and I met, we met 37 years ago, and now we have 2 careers to deal with, not just mine. And I was almost 30 at the time, and you were obsessive about your ministerial career too.
Yeah, I was in a previous life. I was a minister. I still am an ordained United Church of Christ. I mean, accordion was not my career. That's just something I picked up.
So you could marry 2 people and accompany it.
I did all that. I
did
married and buried a lot of people, and I served churches, and then I was the director of a chaplaincy program in Bucks County for the last 20 years, and all that kind of thing. So I was a minister at the time when we met 37 years ago.
Well, you had 2 churches here, one in Flicksville and one in Martins Creek. And I had just published my 2nd book in downtown Easton when we met. Because back in '74, because of my art hobby of capturing historic architecture, which was at the time threatened with demolition. So I did a book in a book of mine was published in '74 to capture these historic buildings in Australia where I was living and working. So this was a hobby at first. Before they would be demolished, then I would go to sketch them. I did 100 in that book, and the next week they're gone. And it was just coming down left. Historic architecture had no real value, no real interest back then, including myself. Up until then, I appreciated it, but I was a modernist. Brutalism was the style. If you've ever seen...
What's brutalism?
If you've ever seen Clockwork Orange, the movie, that futuristic, brutal, inhumane style of hammered concrete and very brutal. It's meant to be brutal because it it has no windows on the street. It's very inhumane. It's very almost police state-like and very modernist and really rough.
And that was the style you were
interested in? And that was the style that everyone had to conform to if you were going to have a successful career. So in London, where I worked, everything was brutalism, including Thamesmead, which is the new town that Clockwork Orange was filmed at. Stanley Kubrick picked that town because it was the hallmark of brutalism, and that movie is about violence and the future and the scary, inhumane future, and that's why he picked that. And I remember being offended because I picked that town to study for my thesis when I was studying in London in the late 60s, because it was all those things, because it was the perfect classic example of this future that all of us are going to be living in, and we better get used to it, you know, and the heck with old buildings, just demolish them and get rid of them, because that was the past. So that was our brainwashing at the time. Then when I got to Australia, the same thing, except I noticed these beautiful, unique historic buildings that are tied in with the climate, with the corrugated iron roof and the verandas and the all Victorian era, and they were all being demolished. And I thought, oh, this is sort of wrong. So I did an exhibition, a gallery did an exhibition of my sketches of these, and it just struck a nerve, captured the buildings, had thousands of commissions. All of a sudden I got really busy, and a publisher published a book of my pen and ink sketches. We called it Vanishing Ink, because the buildings were vanishing so fast. And then historic preservation groups would contact me to do a limited edition lithograph for the building they're trying to save, whatever it was, and they'd raise money and then go to the nation's capital and lobby for money and laws to preserve these buildings. And I became really in demand for becoming a historic preservationist. Ironically, the biggest building that was coming down was on the site of the firm I worked for, was putting up a 60 or 80 story office tower right downtown, high rise, and I was working on that in the daytime, and in the evenings doing these lithographs to raise money to stop that project and to preserve the largest remaining Victorian hotel in the state of Western Australia, which was 5 times bigger than Texas. I mean, Australia is a bigger country than the United States. Fewer people than Pennsylvania, but still. But they're very educated, so they started to, preservation took off there really quickly because people wanted to preserve their heritage. And so I was a part of that. And so that's how my architectural fine art career took off.
I see.
I've since published 35 books of
35 books, that's great.
my work, mainly focusing on architecture or historic architecture. Amazon.com, just type in my name.
I was going to ask where you find it.
So then I, after 5 years, had to leave Australia or become Australian and give up my American citizenship. You couldn't do both.
You can't, right. Okay.
And so I thought, well, I don't want to give up my American citizenship. What if I want it back someday? And I was only 29 years old, but I thought, well, you know, and then I couldn't be licensed in Australia as an architect that would count here, or my education and licensing here would not count in Australia. So I had to choose.
Interesting.
So after 5 years, the deadline, I thought, well, I think I'll go back to the United States, back to Harrisburg, my hometown, publish a book for the bicentennial of the state's historic architecture, because Pennsylvania was the bicentennial state. That's what was on the license plates, you know, where America started here and things like that. So I thought, well, I know, I'll do my second book in Harrisburg of the historic architecture of Pennsylvania. That's what got me on the plane, to New York, then the train, but I missed the train, and a bus from Kennedy to Harrisburg stopped for 20 minutes in a place called Easton. And I've been flying for 3 days, and I was in such jet lag, and we could get off the bus for 20 minutes. I'm walking around the square. Easton was so beautiful, the hills, the rivers, the architecture. I thought, am I back in England? Look at this town square, you know. I'm not getting back on that bus. I can publish that book from here. I don't have to live in Harrisburg. So that's how I got to Easton.
That is so fantastic. Yeah.
20 minutes, serendipity.
Wow.
Best decision I ever made.
I am sure.
Yeah, we love it here.
I love it
We
here
love
too.
Easton.
What
Now-
do you love the most? What do you guys love?
I like the diversity. It's live and let live here. We feel
Yes.
both very comfortable.
I feel that way too. You
We're
could
both
walk
so
down
out,
the
have both.
Mhm.
We're both so out and open here. We have so many
Yeah.
friends and a
Yeah.
wonderful community.
Wonderful.
And the architecture, of course, but it's
Yeah, well, it's the people that keeps
but the
us here.
people,
Mhm.
the diversity here, and
Absolutely. There's so many talented artists
Oh,
involved.
and the
It's just
talent and the
great
creative
minds.
energy.
Yes.
It's to me, it's
Everywhere.
like New York City. We
Yeah,
lived
I
in
know.
Manhattan for
Me-
10 years.
Yeah,
and
I
worked
lived
there
in New York
and
for
commuted.
22
Yeah,
we were
and
there.
it's a
10
similar
years.
feeling, isn't
Yes,
it? It's like
it
this
is. I call it-
energy.
yeah.
And I don't know.
there's so much going behind the scenes that you
That
don't
you-
know
that
about.
would-
I just
every-
finished working
yeah.
on a film with an area animator,
Okay.
filmmaker.
Mhm.
Majik is his
Yeah,
name.
yeah.
And I just finished working on that for about 3 or 4 weeks, all around town doing the stop frame stuff.
That is so great.
Which
I checked
he has-
out some of it. It is amazing.
He
The
has
one
me-
where it looks like it's a tiny town and just the way he's shot
Yeah,
it.
he
Yes.
shot it, but
And it looks like it's a model
Mhm.
town, but it's just the
but he's so
perspective.
creative, and this film will be premiered in the fall.
I can't
But
wait to
it's
see it.
Movies at the Mill.
Movies at the mill. If that's the plan.
that happens,
Yeah.
that's the
If
plan.
he has it ready by then. But he has me going through walls and windows and bouncing off
That's
pillars
so great.
downtown and
With your accordion.
with my accordion, smashing through paintings that people are carrying down the street and going down, bouncing down the street in a park bench. He's got all these special effects that he's done with me over the weeks, and so that'd be a lot. Just crazy things like that can happen in town. And
Absolutely.
It's
got-
an amazing town, isn't it?
And
Yes.
the market, the farmers
The
market
farmers market.
has
The
brought more
oldest-
people here.
261
261 years. Fact,
years
You
old.
played. You were asked
I
to play
played Happy Birthday last week at the market
Great.
to celebrate the
Yes.
161st birthday.
I remember it was down to one vendor in 2003.
Do you
One
remember that?
vendor.
It seemed like so sad, you know, and
Yeah.
forlorn, and like what
Now
is it
it's
going to
just
stop? Is it
bringing
going to be
people
lost?
in, and again, young and old and ethnic, various
It's like a
ethnicities.
religious, you know,
Oh,
yeah,
it's
occasion.
fantastic. So
Yeah,
yeah, we
and-
love it here, and
and
we're staying.
To me, it's
Yeah.
almost like the United Nations in a way,
Mhm.
where I had worked once volunteering there for the UN, and it's one of my favorite institutions in New York. And it reminds me of like just people from all over the world, every age,
Yes.
every ethnic,
Yes.
and it's so integrated. We love it because it's so integrated. It's not
Yeah.
segregated into
Right.
like
Not at
white
all.
ghettos.
Well, we lived in
Not
New
at
York
all.
City.
Right.
We lived in Greenwich.
And it
Village.
reminds
we
us
love
of
that
the village.
diversity in the mix.
Greenwich.
Right.
And
and
Chelsea.
And certainly New York, Easton has that New York connection.
Yeah, I
Oh,
call
it's
it the
funny.
6th borough or the
It
secret
is like a borough of
Yeah.
New York
It is.
now.
Mhm.
It
The
really
Little
is.
Apple compared
Yeah.
to the Big
Yeah.
Apple.
The
They
Little
used to
Apple.
call it the
They used
Little
to call it
Apple.
the
Yeah.
Little Apple.
Yeah,
Yes.
and there's
So
the train
there's
service.
so many New Yorkers like us who came here many,
Yeah.
many years ago.
Yeah, we moved here from New York.
From New York.
Because once I moved here and got the book launched, then I met Earl almost right away. And right away we moved to New York City because we knew we couldn't survive here with our careers
Mhm.
by being honest about our relationship.
Mhm.
We knew we would be fired
We had to
or
be-
shot or murdered. So we said the only
Crazy.
safe place for us
Yeah.
in this United States is a gay ghetto, and there were two of them pretty much,
Uh-huh.
New York and San Francisco.
Uh-huh.
So
Shows
New
you.
York's closer, let's go there.
Yeah.
So we moved right away to
And
Manhattan.
I'm a native New Yorker. I'm from Buffalo.
Are you? Okay,
Buffalo.
right.
I
yeah.
call myself a native
Native New
New
Yorker,
Yeah.
From Buffalo.
Yeah.
Buffalo's not Manhattan.
But
But so that's how we got to New York. And then 5 years later, we're out here for a party
Uh-huh.
and saw a house for sale downtown. I thought, oh, just for a laugh, let's
For
ask.
just a laugh.
Just for weekends,
Yeah.
maybe. You know,
and we
we're,
thought the
Yeah.
price was just the down payment. No, that was for the whole
that was
house.
for the whole
Right.
house.
Unbelievable.
So that's how we
Back in those days.
bought a
This
house
place
here.
is
30. It wasn't this
Oh,
house.
it wasn't this one.
No, it was
Okay.
downtown.
Okay.
And
This came later.
because we could walk to the, well, we still can walk to the bus, but we didn't have cars
Yeah.
in Manhattan, so we thought, well, we need a place downtown. It's just a couple of blocks from the bus station, and bought it. And we had that for about 4 or 5 years, but then we got into real estate and bought other buildings and bought and sold in the 80s. And this was one of them that wouldn't sell because this was the worst building in all of Easton.
This house was the worst. This was
Was
a
it
total
really?
Yes.
wreck. Condemned.
Condemned.
Wreck when we bought it.
And couldn't get a mortgage, couldn't get insurance because it was a condemned, rotting,
Oh,
falling down
it
place.
was a mess.
And now, 30 years later,
But
it's nice.
Yes.
another of my hobbies is
Exquisite, it's
restoration, so
beautiful.
I've done a lot of this
Oh, really?
myself. You know,
Okay.
restoration,
Yeah.
detail here,
Yeah.
and so forth.
Yeah, he's done
Yeah.
a lot of this
Myself.
work
Oh yeah, I love
Right.
because he loves puttering. He
tinkering,
calls it.
puttering.
Right. What a
Runs in the
fantastic
family.
team. You know, you guys are very balanced.
Yes.
interests.
A lot of fun. You have to
Yeah.
keep active.
Absolutely.
Also, New
I'd like
York.
to be
You
working
say
on
you
this.
lived in New York for
Mhm.
years.
Mhm.
You know then about the space deprivation
Yeah.
of New York City, and it's now in all the boroughs too, not just
Mhm.
Brooklyn and Manhattan, but the Bronx and Queens, everything. You can't get space
I
there
know.
affordably. It's
I know.
insane.
That's why I'm so small, because like a goldfish,
Yes,
you can't,
like a goldfish.
you can't grow.
And that's how I gained
without
100 pounds. 'Cause we're
Right here.
we fill the space that's available.
But,
So
yeah,
that was what drove us
space.
out of New
the
York.
final
was
frontier
space.
space.
Yes.
And
Here we
in
are.
Easton, you get this quality space.
And it really, I have a great space there on North
Mhm.
Second with
Yes.
just
Yeah.
room. You walk into a room and
Lots of rooms.
you can breathe.
And it's
you know.
impossible any longer in New York.
Yeah.
The last place we looked at, because we were thinking of selling this house and moving back to, because we're getting old, we're 66, and we shouldn't be foolish regarding the survivors. So Pennsylvania has no civil rights. So we said, now that New York has marriage equality and all federal, state, and local civil rights, we got to move back to New York. So we've been looking at places. And I'd say to the realtors, I don't want a coffin even when I'm dead,
Right.
let alone
Well,
alive
exactly.
in New York.
Yeah, yeah.
And how much is this again? You know?
Right.
Yeah.
I said, here's where you
It's
say,
astronomical.
here's where you say you're kidding. You know,
Right.
forget it. It's
Yeah.
insane. It's,
Yeah.
it's beyond
Mhm.
insane.
Absolutely.
So we thought, well, okay, let's stay in Easton then and fight. Instead of fleeing to where we're equal in 12 states,
Mhm.
let's just stay here and fight like mad. We started this 2 weeks ago already. As of Monday of this week, there's a federal lawsuit now filed to get Pennsylvania on
Great.
board with the safe U.S. Supreme
Good.
Court, which could get
Congratulations.
resolved very quickly.
Yeah.
The ACLU
Yeah.
filed it
Yeah.
last Monday, this coming 2 days ago, and now it's like dominoes because the Supreme Court was
Mhm.
very clear
Mhm.
that to deny us equality,
Mhm.
even civil unions are unconstitutional now, like what New Jersey has.
Okay.
So it must be marriage equality in Pennsylvania immediately, and that could happen within weeks
Right.
Wow.
because it'll be
Wow.
a court injunction to
Yeah.
stop administering these hateful laws.
It's hateful.
See, we're-
And
It's
then we don't have to
it's
move.
So
We
ludicrous.
were married in Canada 10 years ago.
Okay.
So we are legally married in
married.
Canada, which is recognized in the states that
Every state
recognize it
and
here,
Washington D.C.
but not Pennsylvania.
and
But-
14 countries.
But if Pennsylvania, the law is erased, that restriction is erased, then we'd be considered married here. Then we wouldn't have the worry at our age of
Mhm.
what one of us passes
Right.
away of a crippling estate
Well, we would
tax.
become next of kin as
We'd be
any,
next to kin.
any married
We'd
couple
have
would be.
the 1,100 protections that heterosexual couples have because
Mhm.
they're married, that we have
Mhm.
zero.
Mhm.
Because when your heterosexual couple is married, you know, it says, the government says, "Oh, congratulations on your marriage. Here's the gift we're giving you: 1,100 protections and privileges and so forth."
Mhm.
We get zero. But if Pennsylvania finally is able to recognize our marriage, when or if, well, at some point one of us should pass away, the other isn't going to have a crippling estate tax,
Mhm.
which might mean that person would lose the home
The
that we
our
both
own
had,
home that we
that we
We've
both
worked
had
our whole
and paid for
lives
our
and-
life.
Yeah.
And that's just one of the many
Just
things.
one.
Financial.
Exactly.
It's not always just financial, but all the other protections
Mhm.
that you have. And so we're,
and that's what
we're,
the federal case was all about.
we're
Anyway.
hoping that very soon Pennsylvania will come on board with all of mostly the New England states and California
Mhm.
that have
And Iowa,
that
and now
Iowa.
soon Arkansas. And,
Arkansas.
these federal, the ACLU is filing cases now in all of these states. Illinois is another one to get civil unions converted to, and New Jersey converted to marriage instantly, immediately,
Yeah.
because
No more.
it is a hardship.
Right.
It is a source of stress.
It's a source of
And
stress
so we
for
had
us.
the house for
Yeah.
sale, and every time we'd have a buyer, would say, "No, we can't live here. Why should we?
Why should we live?
Why should we have
We're
to?"
Americans.
Right.
We've paid our taxes.
Yeah.
Natural-born
I agree.
Americans.
I
We lived
agree.
here. We built this home.
Wholeheartedly.
We have a community.
Mhm.
Why should we leave? Because over there in New York or somewhere else,
We're protected.
We're protected. We have the federal.
Yes.
When the worst happens.
Yeah.
When the worst happens.
And that's what that federal lawsuit was, the
Yeah.
Supreme Court lawsuit was. Edie Windsor was 84 years old. Her wife died. They were married in Canada 2 years before her wife died. And she was hit with, elevated up to a $680,000 estate tax bill, federal, state, whatever. Well, by then, state didn't matter because they were on board, but federal. And so she sued and she won. It was the first time it came to the Supreme Court and the biggest
Fantastic.
victory. So the Supreme Court gave us the key. they didn't overturn these bans in 36 states, which they should have done, but they gave us the key to use to file lawsuits in federal courts in each state, and there's no recourse. It can't go to the Supreme Court anymore because it's already been decided. So the lower federal courts must overturn these bans, but the burden was put on us average citizens to go to the expense or the bother and the stress of suing Pennsylvania or whatever other state. And as of Monday, the ACLU gathered 26 plaintiffs. We had a call for plaintiffs for our lawsuit, but we were too late. We're happy to be too late to get included in theirs, so we're put our lawsuit on hold until, but we did a call for plaintiffs and got dozens and dozens, just since a week ago Friday. Yeah. But now that can be put on hold because now it's already there at the federal court in Harrisburg.
Excellent, yeah.
Which is my hometown, so I'm sort of glad that that's where it'll get resolved, where I came into this world 66 years ago. We were in New York last Sunday for the Pride Parade that was celebrating, it was huge, and we were in the front of the parade, and because we were marching with Marriage Equality USA for the victory, it was a wonderful celebration. But it was the first time these 66-year-old feet, and I've lived and worked around the world, stood on American soil where I would have every federal, state, and local protection of law afforded to anyone who was either heterosexual or pretends to be heterosexual.
Right. Right.
And we crossed the state line back to PA, and we have less than nothing. So I said, we've got to sue.
Absolutely.
We've got to sue.
We've got to fight.
And already now it's happening.
Now the ACO is taking it already.
That's wonderful.
Just
That's encouraging.
Ignorance and fear, and like, why would you? I explain all
Simply
this to my
animus.
8-year-old daughter,
Just-
and she understands. She's like, why would someone? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely.
It's
like telling you what kind of food to eat. It's telling
well,
you
I define it as
unbelievable.
I call it,
It's
because I'm also ordained, I call it the evil myth of heterosexual supremacy. It's like white supremacy, it's like a choice of faith style supremacy where you're anti-Semitic or something. It's a choice. You can choose to be a supremacist, or you can choose to not be a supremacist. And regardless of the reason, whether it's someone's choice of faith style that causes them to be bigoted or prejudiced or discriminatory or a supremacist, or whether it's choice of faith style, whether it's just simple brainwashing by your own family or by the church or schools or the laws,
other influences,
or politicians who get a lot of votes and people that get quite rich, being supremacists.
To have an opinion one way or the other.
Yes. It's just simple supremacy that is un-American, it's unconstitutional, and finally the Supreme Court said so.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. I'm so glad.
So we don't take it personally per se, because there's nothing personal we did except show up non-heterosexual. That's all we did. We didn't invade from Planet Queer.
Right.
We just showed up here.
Yeah.
And like, I would love to know when a heterosexual chose to be a heterosexual. Never.
Right.
So same thing with us. But, you know, we've spent
you make
our
a great
lifetime
point. Absolutely.
Being targeted for discrimination by our governments.
No excuse for that.
But Easton is a bit of an oasis, because locally, Mayor Panto, when he had nothing to gain and everything to lose, signed a marriage equality petition, one of the first in the United States to do so. We have so many friends and allies here who just go out of their way to not target us, but rather to affirm us, and it's just great. And that includes, well, mostly heterosexuals, because that's most of the population. We had our big party here last summer, and there were hundreds of people here. Someone said they counted over 400 people, and I think there were maybe 10 or 15 non-heterosexuals here, and all the rest were our supportive Estonian friends and some family around the nearby who could get here. And it's just a wonderful live and let live community for a small town in Pennsylvania.
Absolutely.
It's almost unheard of.
Completely. It is.
PA?
It's like an exception to the rule. I mean, it's really...
I think it...
And I remember being at the party and someone saying to me, everyone who cares is here.
Yes.
Right. Everybody who cares
About Easton, about
arts,
people,
Easton,
about
people,
arts, creative.
they're all here. Here are the
Right.
people here tonight.
It was fantastic.
It was. It was. I had a babysitter for like a half hour. I'm like, oh God, how are you?
Yeah.
I gotta go.
I couldn't even get in my own house for an hour and a
Yes,
half.
I'm
It was
sure.
crowded.
I'm sure.
But it was wonderful, and I thought, look around. I said, this is Easton. It's like the
Yes.
United Nations. You have
Absolutely.
just every
Yeah,
type of human being
I know.
on earth was in this.
I know. Yep.
And it was, to me, that is what Easton is all about.
Yeah.
It's the people. Now, I'm partial to buildings and architecture, but they're just stuff. You know what I mean? Although I do believe,
Now, which
I get a
is-
little
go
bit
ahead.
spiritual about architecture. I feel it does embody the spirit of the people who built the buildings, who designed the buildings, who built them. And I think brick, stone, they're all natural materials, even steel. I mean, everything's natural if it comes from planet
Right.
Earth.
Yeah.
Embodies some kind of spirit that gets imbued into buildings. So
Right.
I have a spiritual connection with architecture,
Yeah.
any type, any style. But that comes through too in Easton, because even though I love the architecture, it's the spirit of the people. And after all,
Yeah.
Heritage Day just a couple of days ago
Yep.
was the reading of the Declaration of Independence. Easton was feisty, even then, demanding freedom. This was the smallest place in the 13 colonies to publicly dare to read that document
Right.
and pledge